Welcome to this Insights interview from the Payments Association. This month's VIP guest has achieved what so many entrepreneurs dream of, which is building their business towards a sizzling unicorn-sized exit. As someone who could well earn the title father of fintech, although he's kicking me under the table as I say that, our guest graduated from Harvard, started out at the United Nations, and then took executive roles at Infinity, Cohera, Coronet, and Triana, before taking on the role of CEO of Currencycloud in 2011. He's held numerous NED roles too, and I first got to know Mike when he was nominated to the Payments Association's advisory board way back in 2016. But I could always rely on him to contribute, challenge, and add value, helping us to build a better world through payments. Outside the corporate roles, he's now Trustee and Director of the Aurora Orchestra, a board member and treasurer of the New York charity RxArt. And so please welcome the CEO of Currencycloud, Mike Laven.
So thank you very much, Tony, for having me. I have known you and the EPA for quite some time. Though calling me the father of fintech makes me feel old, but at least you didn't call me the grandfather.
Well, that is true. That is certainly true, and you've got a couple of those in your back pocket as well. So look, at the start of every Insights interview, when I'm trying to really help our members get to know what are the underlying drivers behind these extraordinary achievements that you've got. I ask my guests how they stay motivated. What makes you go the extra mile when faced with balancing all the different challenging jobs and home lives and things that people are calling on your time and energy. So what is it, Mike, that continues to motivate you day in and day out?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, there was once an interview with the actor Alec Baldwin, and who does a lot of very good films and a lot of really terrible films. And he was asked, why do you do so many films? And he said, I like to work. and so I think the first thing is I'm quite motivated to work and to be busy. I think that's the first thing. Maybe secondly, beyond that, I've always chosen businesses to work in which connected to something globally. If you go back to the UN I did earlier, and there's a whole series of international connections and global connections in my family. And so I've always, remember in Currencycloud as an FX business that's totally connected to the world. So I care about being connected to the world. And I've always looked at businesses that connected to the world. And then maybe the other point of that is, I think one of the more gratifying things in the startup world particularly is that we hire, the average age in the Currencycloud is in its early 30s. Most of the employees are well under 30. And I actually really enjoy that process of people coming into the company and growing with it. So I say both mission in terms of external and mission internally are the things that really drive me.
So where does your vision come from? What was it that made you have this vision for the firm? Where did that come from?
So I remember, as I'm married an American living in the UK, I have family in India. I've lived moving money around the world personally for years, and either both as an individual, as a business, and associated with it. So I really internalized that as a business problem. To me, it's not an abstract problem; it's an incredibly practical problem. And so the vision at a very high level of solving that problem is something that I could very much relate to. And I need to relate to things to be motivated by them. How that plays out as a business, there's many different ways that could happen. But the overarching mission of the firm, which is to improve the friction or take the friction out of moving money globally. Now, a lot of firms say that. We have our own way of doing it. But I can really personally associate with that mission almost daily on a personal basis. And so consequently, I understand how solving those problems are important for both me personally, but then globally for the world economy.
Yeah, I think, I've got to say, I think that's brilliant. You can almost touch and feel that sensation of engaging in solving a problem that millions and hundreds of millions of people actually suffer from every day.
Yeah, I think the personal connection makes a huge difference, and it's the personal connection to the employees and the personal connections to the business problems. I really value that.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's bring our viewers up to date with what's happening at Currency Cloud. I mentioned at the beginning the Dollar Unicorn achievement. Where does that come from? You set out to make the firm the world's most trusted payment platform. I'm quoting from the press release. Now, that's no small ambition at all. To realize it, I think you've had to raise money over the years. Even just a couple of years ago, you raised 80 million. And then last summer, Visa announced that it would acquire Currency Cloud in a deal that valued the company at $900 and something million, £700 million. So tell us a bit about the story. You know, what was it that kind of, tell us about the journey and where did it start? Where did it all start? Did somebody phone up and say, Mike, come and make me a unicorn?
Well, no one ever calls you up and says that. It was $1 billion when the pound was at 140, so we had a bit of diminishing from then. Listen, right. We don't. Our business model is to empower businesses, and by that I mean other fintech businesses. So in Starling Bank, Free Trade, Klarna, other companies that they deal with end users, so that we don't deal directly with end users. That means that the businesses that we deal with are providing a service to their clients, so they really need to trust that we'll be there because it's their reputation that's on the line in terms of dealing with us. So the trust component, both to be trusted by our customers and then also to be trusted by the regulators. Because again, our model and the payments world, as we all know, is a very highly regulated business. But I'm in a business where I'm actually serving other parties. So the trust component is incredibly important. And we built the business model and the product from the beginning as a firm that would be servicing other clients to service their clients.
Yes.
And that's made a huge difference in terms of the product, in terms of our relationship with our customers. We go out of our way to make sure we don't compete with our customers. There are business opportunities we could have taken over the last few years that could have been very interesting for the business, but might have put us in competition to our customers. So we've always been very careful to do that, and that's part of the trust component. So as we built the business to be a global business, first concentrating in the UK, then of course Europe, paying out globally, expanding to North America, to North American clients, and now in the last year, more to Asia. It's really been fulfilling this global vision, but keeping the business model where we don't sell to end users, we service the fintech world. And I think one of our momentum issues is that we've been very, very consistent in terms of that business model. And so we have quite a good reputation in the fintech world.
Yes.
I wouldn't say everyone uses us, that no one ever can say that, but we have a very important position in UK fintech, and particularly having backed and provided services to many startups. For example, we started working with Revolut way pre-launch.
Really wonderful.
You know, and they're a very large customer of ours, but pre-launch, you know, who knows? So we work with a lot of early state. We've been tried to stay very startup friendly.
Yeah.
So that to make it, especially early stage startups don't financially know what they're doing sometimes. Their business model will evolve. And so we've tried to be very sensitive to that and work with them. So I think the overriding vision is to provide a global service, to provide an embedded service. Embedded finance has now come in today, but embedded in our clients so that they can service their customers.
So there's a few things there. There's focus. There's about not competing with your clients. It's about spotting the winners, which you did with people like Revolut. And this point you just mentioned about being embedded, essentially embedding yourselves with your clients. So it makes it a no-brainer that they should continue to work for you. I think all of those are really strong messages. And I think the audience will be interested in that. And then, of course, you know, I do know from our previous conversations and what you've just described, I do think Currency Cloud is unique. And your performance financially has always made you an attractive potential target for businesses to buy you or invest in you. Why did you ultimately choose Visa as your exit partner?
Yes, that's a good question, Tony. first of all, we've been working with Visa for 2 years. About, might even be more than that. And as part of our prior round of financing, Visa came into the company and we established an important partnership with them, of whom the first client is eToro, where
members.
effectively providing a real-time FX or a point-of-sale FX solution to Visa customers. So we've got to know Visa really well over time. And one of the things that was important to me, and because I also believe, very firmly believe that most fintech companies will be consolidated and ultimately will be part of something larger. We're a very mission and values driven company, and we actually liked the Visa people. The people who we dealt with were good people. They were straightforward. They were honest. They embodied a kind of culture that we could deal with. I mean, of course, they're a very large company, and there are always going to be frictions in moving a smaller company into a larger company. But I look at it more of us choosing them as much as them choosing us.
Nice.
In the end, I wanted a place that would provide effectively a good home for our almost 500 employees right now and would continue the mission. And I think Visa is the place to do that. But I think it's very important to understand that we knew them. This was not an auction situation where we went out to sell the company. This was an inside friend who talked to us about what we wanted to do, and we thought it was the right thing.
I think that says a great deal about the need to build long-term partnerships, kind of almost regardless of where you are in your journey, but also to realize that it's about getting to do business with the right people. There's a few people out there that I know in the industry who are concerned about the schemes becoming what they might call as too powerful. Which is why we've got the European Payments Initiative in Europe, for example. What do you share any of their concerns?
And there's a Scandinavian initiative, and there'll be a series of other initiatives. Listen, the schemes, the two major schemes, and the others are quite powerful, but they provide a service that I think is quite important in terms of certification of end users, in terms of running networks of networks. I think those will persist going forward. They would look at with sort of innovations, whether it's BNPL or other kinds of innovations. There will certainly be competition, whether it's the European Payments Directive. I can't remember exactly the name of the Scandinavian scheme. I think there's another one in Eastern Europe. There's the innovations of BNPL. So the world will diversify and always become more competitive. But I think that the basic infrastructure networks of certifying end users and moving money around tens of thousands of banks provides an essential service to the globe, and that will persist.
Yeah, no, I have to agree, and the world is a better place because of them.
Absolutely. I mean, the ability to have millions and millions of users connected to tens of thousands of banks and institutions is an important part of the world. It does make the firms fairly powerful, but I think they'll persist over time, and the world will always be increasingly competitive from existing technologies and technologies we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I'd like to move on now to kind of explore a few of the secrets behind your success. Now, everybody wants the sound bites, and I know it's no such thing as sound bites. It's a long graft over a number of years, but you've managed to achieve what seems to be impossible. You've managed to make real money. I'm assuming you have made some real money, actually,
yes.
While remaining, an incredibly nice bloke who everybody likes, always accessible, always lovely to work with. And I'm speaking personally here, but I'm sure your team would say the same. And always open to helping others. And I think of the other things you've been involved with supporting. What's the secret sauce, the magic formula? I mean, what if you had to give the top 3 tips to an aspiring entrepreneur entering the world of fintech now? What would those tips be?
So, in terms of building the firm, I've always looked at it as elimination of 3 risks. The first risk is, can you build it? And that risk can often be solved financially. it's possible to build a lot of different things. The next risk is, will anybody buy it after you've built it? And,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
sometimes plenty of companies fail on that. But the third risk is, can you build a company around it? And can you build a management team? And as we know from the lore of startups about pivots and changes of technology, that even as we look at the Currency Cloud, who we've serviced and how we've serviced them over time, those things have changed. So the most important thing, I think, is one, maybe a clear vision on the problem you're set out to solve, but also the quality of the people that you bring in at an early stage. It's the management team and how that team, whether it's finance or sales or product or technology, all of that team, to me, that's the key to success. And the way I've always looked at it is I empower the team and we try to run it together as a group. We're a very chatty group. And for new people who come in, they have to learn sort of that way of working. But it's, to me, the key is that having, it's the personnel side of having a team with you. You know, I've seen some things on blogs that one of your first hires should be a chief people officer these days. And I really believe that. I think culture, values, and team are what make the company, because it's never a straight line, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good quarters and great years and all sorts of things that are going to happen. If you've got to have a team that works together and knows how to work with each other.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that'll be very inspiring for the listeners. Certainly I find it so. You know, thank you. And I love that sort of be able to make it, sell it. And what about you? What's next for Mike Laven?
Oh no, I have an obligation. Well, once you take so much money from people, you have an obligation to make it right. And remember, this deal only closed on the 22nd of December, and then everybody went away on holidays. So we're really only 3 weeks into what the integration is.
Wow.
And I'll make sure that these things just don't happen correctly unless you steer them. And I'll make sure to stay around and make sure it goes correctly.
Yeah, good for you.
I think there's an advantage. You know, the investors have got their bit. Some of the employees have made some money, but now it's important that if Visa paid $1 billion to make sure they get their money's worth.
You know, absolutely.
And it doesn't just happen. We have to make sure it's right.
Absolutely. I mean, having the opportunity to leverage Visa's brand and relationships as well, that's going to really help. That's a real asset. Yeah,
and people who've not been through an acquisition before will always get nervous. And there really is no reason to get nervous. Most jobs stay exactly the same. So but it needs help. No, I have, aside from my trips to the US to visit my grandchildren, I'm running the same company in the same place. But now, what was the UK play? You know, one man, two governors. So
yes,
I've just got a different set of governors. That's it.
Yeah, brilliant. I'd like to remind you of a conversation I had with you. I can picture it now. About 4 or 5 years ago, and I quoted. In fact, I've quoted this story several times. We were talking about cryptocurrencies and blockchain and DLT and stuff. And I asked you. I said, "What impact do you think that will have on the market?" I'll never forget what you said. You said there may be a big future for it, but not in the next 5 years. So I'm not going to bother myself about it until then. And interestingly, here we are 5 years later. In terms of our industry, blockchain and cryptocurrencies has had a minimal impact on our industry directly in terms of payments. But there's lots of talk about CBDCs. House of Lords has just done its report on the potential relevance or not to the UK's payment system. So, can we talk about them again 5 years on and say, here we are. How relevant are they now? And how do you think they'll change the landscape in the next 5 years?
So certainly the amount of assets in cryptocurrencies of various kinds is really substantial right now. And I don't see anywhere in the near term the cryptocurrencies being used as a payment mechanism. I mean, remember, if you look at Bitcoin going from $60,000 to $38,000, that kind of volatility doesn't lend itself to the security that payments need. But as an asset, it's very important. And you may probably find this year For example, can your crypto assets be valued in getting a mortgage? Also, many of the companies that we deal with who are asset managers or banks now provide both the crypto wallet and the fiat wallet to their customers. So I think though we don't see the crypto as a payment mechanism in the near term, what we do see is many fintechs using crypto in very different ways, whether it's NFT, whether it's assets, whether access to trading. And I think that will challenge the traditional banks' fear of crypto.
Sorry, what do you mean it'll challenge? Did you say channel or challenge their fear?
I think challenge is
okay.
that, remember, traditional banks, and very correctly, are concerned about the previous AML issues relative to fintech. I think you've got a lot of very smart fintechs who are solving those problems. And so I think this year, that will be 2022, will be a watershed year in the kinds of fintech firms that use crypto for a whole series of different purposes. Those purposes may not be payments, but that crypto itself will be incorporated in a variety of firms, which means that the financial system will have to deal with crypto assets, maybe not as payments. I don't think that's necessarily a distributed future at all anymore.
Interesting. That's quite controversial.
Yeah, well, remember that the assets, the technology gets privatized, it gets centralized, and it gets financialized over time.
Yes.
And remember, if you have only one access method, does it really matter where the data is sold? So the mechanisms of centralization, so the data may be held on a blockchain in a variety of different places, but if there's only one access method, then you're still getting centralized. So I think, whether it's CBDCs or stable coins, I think we're just at the beginning of how this is going to play out. But for 2022, all of the fintech firms that we're talking to are going to have to think about how they handle what they do with crypto, with how their customers use crypto, and basically with crypto assets. Maybe not payments this year, but crypto assets.
Yes, certainly that's true. I was just having a conversation with the CEO, Ben Agnew, today, who's one of our members would like to pay us in Singapore in Bitcoin. So, and that's going to become increasingly common. Those conversations need to be answered somehow. So
it will be not quite ubiquitous, but there's going to be a lot more touching of various kind of crypto instruments and ideas with the traditional financial system, and that is not going to abate at all. And we're all in the financial industry going to have to figure out how do we deal with it.
It is exciting, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is exciting. For the old plumbing part of financial services, we're now very much at the cutting edge. I think it's brilliant.
Well, what we learned from crypto, and I tell you what crypto did do in payments, it made everybody understand that the world will have to be instant. Because one of the advantages of crypto payments, they might be volatile, but they're also instant.
Yep.
And so the instant notion of payments has come over to every other payments, and I think a lot of that came from crypto thinking and people working with crypto.
Good. So let's move on. That's really useful to have that chat about technology. Interestingly, many fintech entrepreneurs come through the technology area or finance, and you came up through sales and marketing. Which route do you think is best and why?
So the most, I think, to go back to what I said before, what's important is a vision that looks at a customer problem. And you can come to that customer problem in a lot of different ways. You can come to it by wanting to solve a technical problem. You can come to it, as I talked about it, in terms of experiencing it personally. So whether you come from the tech side or the sales and marketing side, what's defining is not where you started in terms of all of that, but what you're thinking you're actually doing and solving and associated with. So plenty of people have start from the technical side, but they never have a vision of something that they're trying to solve. And to me, that's the determinant. I have a degree in education and a degree in anthropology.
Oh, wow.
So I
Goodness me.
clearly, so there's, as I've said to a couple of groups, there's hope for everybody, right?
Brilliant. Brilliant.
But sort of understanding the customer and understand what human beings or businesses are trying to solve, to me, is the key thing. Whether you approach that from code or you approach that from people, that's up to you, but it's the understanding of the world and the customer's problems that are most important.
And yet, despite that focus, you still have time to do things outside work. And I was reading about your interest in your orchestra, the Aurora Orchestra, and the work of RxArt. Is that how you pronounce it? RxArt?
RxArt, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to know a little bit about them, but mostly, why is it important to do things outside work? If focus is what it's all about, how come it's interesting and useful to do things outside there?
So first of all, the talking about the orchestra is so much like talking about a software company. One of the first companies I was on the board of, we had as a board member a very famous management consultant who was also a board member of the San Francisco Symphony. And he said to me, Mike, software and music, they're the same.
Wow.
If we in the orchestra, we program all the old favorites, Beethoven and Brahms symphonies, we'll get the donors, but we'll lose the players.
Yes.
If we program all innovation and all new music, well, we might get the world's best players, but no one's going to give us money.
I love that. That's a brilliant story. I've never heard that before.
And so it was quite a famous management consultant. And I find it's many of the same things with the arts, is that there's this tension between creativity and innovation and having to be successful in the financial world. So I think about that. I also think that that diversity of opinion, of learning from people who are sort of not outside my walk of life, the technology, fintech world, is incredibly important in informing me about what people want, what employees want, what people are listening to, what's going on in the world. So I've always tried to keep a few things going that keep me engaged beyond what I have going in terms of, and running the company is all involving. But I make time to make sure that I'm doing things outside of it to bring that perspective into my life.
I think that's wonderful. Balance. And I understand you're coming back to the UK tomorrow from Boston, having spent some time with your grandchildren, and they, I bet, provide some balance for you.
They provide balance as well, yeah.
So look, you're coming back to the UK tomorrow. You've always been a champion of UK fintech. We sometimes, as Brits, we like to be positioning ourselves as world leaders. Can we talk honestly about this for a moment, do you think? To what extent is the UK actually leading in fintech, and what needs to be done to get us on track to being more world leading?
So first of all, I've been involved with UK fintech before it was fintech, probably before the euro, and the UK's leading position as a financial center. A trading center. I mean, I can't remember the percentage of the world's foreign exchange that comes through the UK, but it's totally dominant. So the infrastructure that's been built up over 100 years and it's not the banks, not only the banks, but it's banks and technology and consultants and lawyers and, just a whole range of infrastructure is unmatched globally. There are other places in terms of technology that are important. I think the UK has also had a very enlightened regulator who looked at both balancing consumer protection with customer access. And that's been quite enlightened in terms of allowing tremendous amounts of fintech innovation to take place. The regulator has an innovation group that really thinks about those things. So though the regulatory, mission, is consumer and business protection, but that has to be balanced with allowing new innovative solutions to come up. So I think that the UK still has that regulatory position. It still has the depth of financial understanding in a whole series of different markets that are in part of the financial world. I think Brexit was a challenge. I mean, to cut yourself off from both the easy access to people and markets was problematic, but it's I don't know, we're 2 or 3 years on, and I think we're all getting on with it.
We are. I mean, we're not waiting for in fact, it's interesting. Some of the CBDC conversations I'm having would not be possible with us being inside the EU. So we're starting to discover ways of achieving some new activities that are not held back by the European Union.
So I have actually quite a lot of confidence that the leading fintech position that the UK has, of course, it's going to be challenged by other places, but it doesn't represent something that's happened in the last 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. It represents something that's happened over a long period of time with the UK participation in global financial markets. And again, those things may change over time, they'll develop, but the depth of that understanding of financial markets, the regulatory oversight and how that's structured, I think will continue to have a competitive advantage. Of course, New York and Singapore and France and plenty of other places will have very credible offerings, but I don't think anybody else has the kind of depth that the UK has.
And I agree with you. It's very reassuring though to hear it from someone with your experience and your perspective. So thank you. We're almost out of time. I have one more question. More question. I know we could chat away all day, I'm afraid, but I'm afraid we're not allowed to. The editors will have my my garters. So the final question is: if you were to be, imagine you were chatting to a graduate in their early 20s, or even an undergraduate in their a non-graduate in their 20s, coming to you, starting off in their career. What advice would you give anyone wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I would say associate early with a group of people you can learn from. It used to be you would tell people to take a job in a big company. I don't say that to people anymore at all. I think that a venture-backed company that's run well, that has a small company that has a focus on learning, that has a focus on team and community, you can learn as much there now as you can in a structured program at a big firm. But what I would advise people to do is sort of try to look at a business problem that you can care about. Look at the people who you work with, because what matters is who you work with. And I do talk to plenty of young people, and they say, I'm going to go here or I'm going to go there, and I really ask them, have you met the people? Have you met the people you're going to work with? And if you can do that, then you can learn, because in the early parts of your career, what you need to do is learn. And so associate with learning really early, and that'll see you through.
Brilliant counsel, very wise words. Thank you. And I know the audience will have learned a great deal from a great series of pieces of guidance and advice. Thank you, Mike. Much appreciated. Have a very safe trip back.
Thanks so much, Tony, and I'm always happy to help out.
Thanks so much. Mike Laven, CEO of Currencycloud. Until the next time, thanks so much.